A massive thank you to today's video sponsor, Match Bingo. They combine football and bingo into one great app. Since launching, they have paid out over £200,000. You'll see why when you head over to the app. You can download it using the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen now. One line, full house. It's a great way to follow along with the football. There's a big summer of football ahead with the Club World Cup. You've got the Women's Euros as well. Match Bingo will be across everything. They also cover darts, which is huge amounts of fun. I've been playing along on Match Bingo for a good while now and always enjoy it. There's free games on there. There's also cards that cost just £2. And if you deposit £5, you get £10 for free. If you deposit £10, you get £20 for free. Give it a go, see what you think, and let me know. Match Bingo, a big thank you. Hey everyone, it's Jack here, TalkNorwichCity. Welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing very well indeed. It's been a strange couple of weeks, maybe a strange last month being a Norwich City fan. We had the sacking, the relatively unexpected sacking of Johannes Torp. Then we had Jack Wilshere in charge for a couple of games, and I think most people probably thought that he would be appointed full-time. That didn't happen, so that was somewhat of a shock. Then we had a couple of weeks of trying to identify our next head coach. That has now happened in Liam Manning, and we've been kind of up in the air a little bit over the past week, waiting for that to be formally announced. Now, I'm recording this in the early morning of Sunday, the 1st of June. We could have an announcement on Sunday. It will happen. A deal has been agreed. Compensation has been agreed. Chris Hogg and James Krause, his backroom staff, will join as well. So it will happen, but it's not been formally announced as of yet. We have, 7 weeks until properly back into pre-season, and very much a look to the start of the championship campaign begins. That sounds like a lot of time. Realistically, that's not. There are going to be transfer rumours that rumble on. I mean, just look at last season when we were travelling to the Kassam to play Oxford on the first day of the season. You had Adam Ida's transfer up in the air. You had Johnny Rowe refusing to play. We need to try and avoid that situation. You don't want to be going into the season with your team not really prepared from a kind of a squad point of view. We want to be making sure that we are going into this season in the best possible way in terms of preparation, in terms of discipline. And I think that Liam Manning will want to do exactly that. I think because we've had these few days of okay, we know our next head coach, and we kind of have learnt a bit more about Liam Manning. I think we knew what he was about, but reading in and really kind of fine tuning ourselves to know exactly the football he plays, the way he operates. His record so far has been good, and I think that illuminates certain things as to why Norwich City have made this appointment. There was a shortlist, I think probably in the end of about 3 or 4 that Norwich had formally spoken to. Pep Lijnders, Gary O'Neill, Liam Manning being one of them. There were a couple of foreign names that I don't think ever actually came out. There were names on that list that Norwich City had never spoken to. There was the news that Russell Martin had offered to chat to Norwich City, but Ben Napper hadn't taken him up on that. So actually, that shortlist was pretty short in the end. Norwich took their time. They kind of had to because Liam Manning was still obviously managing domestically. Bristol City got to the playoffs. They probably knew that he was the man, and they just had to kind of wait the time for that. It was clear from the Johannes Torp appointment that that Norwich City wanted to start playing a certain style of football. They wanted to operate in a certain fashion. This sporting director head coach relationship isn't a new thing anymore. We saw it in 2017 under Stuart Webber and Daniel Farker, where it's a very cohesive relationship. They work very closely together. Those paths have to be incredibly aligned. And ultimately, I think we saw the kind of breaking down of that partnership between Napper and Johannes at the end, where maybe targets weren't particularly formalised and there was confusion around what was expected of Johannes Torp. And ultimately, we weren't good enough, and the football was great at times, but it was ultimately quite inconsistent. There was clearly a lack of discipline within that dressing room. There was clearly a lack of motivation towards the end of the season. I think it's public knowledge, but all of those players under David Wagner, and David Wagner certainly had his issues, but he did get this Norwich side into the playoffs. Would constantly say, playoffs are, achievable, and automatics are achievable until they mathematically weren't. And I think that just kept the players ticking over. I think those Norwich players had switched off long before the end of last season. So that was a real shame. Lots will have been learned around the process of appointing, around recruitment, around playing style, around discipline. And I think ultimately Norwich have gone, okay, we've learned a lot from that. How do we fix these mistakes, and who do we bring in order to help that? And they've gone with Liam Manning. I think a big one are the two names that follow Liam Manning in Chris Hogg and James Krause. He has worked with both of those guys for a long time. I think that's important. One of the kind of real sirens I got from the ultimate failing of Johannes Hoftorp was that he was here, he was exposed, it was a new country, he didn't have staff around him that he'd worked before. Glenn Riddlesholm was obviously next to him, hadn't worked with him before. Jack Wilshere hadn't worked with him before. I don't think that relationship between Wilshere and Napper and Johannes Hoftorp was ideal. So I think that was a big thing, and I think that the fact that Manning comes with staff is important. Look, there are successful managers out there that operate just on their own and then pick up staff as they go. I think Ange Postecoglou does a lot of that. I think where Norwich are at the moment, they need a real core, section of staff, playing staff, that ultimately are going to lead this team. When you look at kind of board level and you see Napper and Zoe Webber, that feels quite exposed as well. You don't want a coaching team that are exposed as well. So I think that's important. Playing style is obviously important as well. We're ultimately trying to build a system where you can drop players in and out, and regardless of the squad, whether it's Liam Manning managing or Johannes Hoftorp managing or whoever the next manager is managing, that style shouldn't shift and players should be able to dip in and out pretty easily. Manning's style is different, and I think we saw that in both games against Bristol City last season. He usually likes to play with three centre-backs. I think he likes his wingers to be quite high up the pitch. He's incredibly high in terms of his press, but he's adaptable. He will be happy to change formation. He's happy to change style, and I think that's important. I think in the modern day, everyone, the better teams in divisions like to keep the ball and slow build up, possession based. That's fine and that's great when you're a dominant side, but there are going to be times when that needs to change. And certainly under David Wagner, and the same under Johannes Hoftorp, it didn't feel like there was a plan B. Under Manning, I think there is. I think there is a ability to switch it up when needed. I think there is an ability to change things when required, and I think his ability to communicate that both pre-game and during the game has been impressive so far. And ultimately, I think experience has been a big thing for Liam Manning. He's managed MK Dons, he's managed Oxford, he's managed Bristol City, and arguably in all of those reigns, all of those sides, he's done well, maybe barring the second season at MK Dons. He overachieved with Bristol City last season. I think that was their first playoff campaign in 17 years. They were effective, they were efficient, they got the job done. Yes, they failed ultimately in the playoffs against a very good Sheffield United side, but I think that campaign was successful and his trajectory has been upwards throughout his career. That's pleasing. He's clearly a very motivated individual. He's had a very good education. He's worked with City Group. He's worked his way up through the age ranks at various football clubs. He lives and breathes coaching. He is a communicator, and seemingly an impressive individual. I think it helps that he's got links with Norfolk. I think that will settle him down. I know he's had a pretty tough year personally, so coming home is probably a real sign for him. And I think ultimately Ben Napper knew that this appointment is massive. Jack Wilshere, could have been given that job. I think Napper understood that the optics around that would have looked quite poor, giving his mate the job. If that hadn't have worked, you kind of go out in flames. At least with this one, it seems calculated. It feels like it's a good move on paper. time will tell. I think whether it's Manning, which it is, or whether it was someone else, it is going to take time. We have now been in this division, we've been out of the Premier League for an extended period now, and I think if you look at the Championship next season, it looks tough. You've got good teams coming up, you've got good teams that have come down, and that middle pack chasing for kind of 4th, 5th and 6th look really strong. So Norwich are going to have to be at it. There's going to be a huge turnover in terms of squad. You've got a new management, trio coming in. There will be a slightly new playing style. There is lots to change. Who knows? It could work straight off the bat. I think this one does require time and patience, but there will be a level of expectancy, and I think Manning will definitely know that, and he will feel confident that he can get that out of his players. So I think the playing style, the experience, the backroom staff that he's got, and his record so far were all huge factors in terms of why Liam Manning has ultimately been given the job as head coach of Norwich City. I would love to hear your thoughts now that the dust has settled a little bit. It sounds weird saying that because he's still not been officially announced at the time of recording, but we've known about this name for a while now. How do you feel about it? We've still got, quite some time until pre-season starts. There'll be lots happening over the coming weeks in terms of incomings and outgoings, I suspect. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.